right, y'all. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. We have a major breaking news coming out of the Middle East. And we also have breaking news coming out of Russia and Ukraine. You don't want to miss today's show. I am telling you that. It is going to be flames has erupted in ports all over Russia. Ukraine has struck major infrastructure. You don't want to miss today's show. Make sure you drop a like, drop a subscription, and drop a follow. Hit that bell button so you get notified. So you don't get notified. So you do get notified when we come on air. We're going to be starting to come on air between 3:30 and 4 o'clock every day in the evening to bring you evening news. And then we'll do late night news around about 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So, further ado, let's get to what we actually have coming up on the channels. We have drawings coming up on the channels starting as soon as we hit our goals on our channels. 500 on YouTube. We only have like 100 some left. I think it's 200 on Kick, 200 on Twitch, and 200 on Rumble. And then we start drawings on them channels. Let's see. Thank you so much over there on Kick. I really appreciate that. Definitely appreciate that. Good afternoon to you too. We also, like I said, we want to bring up about the drawings that's coming up on the channels. The drawings on YouTube seems like it's going to be first once we hit 500 on that. We have Xbox controllers, headsets. We got all kinds of stuff up for grabs, y'all. Heather Jones, thank you. I appreciate that. Oh yeah. You are a follower. How are you today? All right, but anyways, we have some major news coming out of Russia that they are evacuating some of their ports around, some of their citizens around the ports because of all the. It's been burning for days. All the oil that's burning from the refineries that's caught on fire. It's been burning for quite some time now. Let me take the chat thing down a little bit so y'all can see the map. As you can see on the map, we have several markers on there right now. Out of Ukraine, they have hit major ports in the Baltic Sea. I have good intel that the ports or the cities around the ports has been evacuated. Now that is because of all the toxin fumes and oil specks that is raining down on the cities. Yes, it is raining oil, y'all. It is literally raining oil in Russia. But further ado, let's get to the news, y'all.
Here to like, comment, and subscribe and support us on Patreon, link in the description below. Today we have breaking news coming out from around the world, and particularly from the Russian Federation, as the Russian port of Tuapse has been hit again with another significant explosion and fire within the port facility, which has led to the Russian Federation conducting an unprecedented move of a minimal evacuation from the surrounding area. It is now believed, due to significant public pressure inside the Russian Federation, that the Russians may declare a full evacuation of the city of Tuapse, as the fire and toxic smoke is beginning to envelop a large part of the city, and the toxic plume of smoke is now extending 400 kilometers east across the Russian Federation, all the way to the major city of Astrakhan at the mouth of the Volga River. We've also been able to additionally hear that the United States of America has continued its blockade against the Islamic Republic of Iran near to the area of the Arabian Sea, with a vessel being seized today by U.S. armed forces within the area. Additionally, we've also heard that the United States has made the claim that the Iranians are economically collapsing and have made made the statement in lieu of them saying that the Iranians have actually told them this very information. We have also heard in the meantime that Iranian oil depots are beginning to reach maximum capacity and most likely only have about 2 more or 3 more weeks before they reach their full capacity, and the Iranians will have to start closing wellheads due to a lack of available storage for the ongoing production.
Now, see where he said that the Iranians are going to have to start keeping storage. So what's going on is with us having the blockade on the Gulf of Oman, that's putting stress on Iranians' oil infrastructure because they have nowhere to put the oil. They have nowhere to put it. And that's going to turn into a big problem for Iran. I know it sounds like it's a good thing, but it's not, because they'll literally start overflowing and literally the wells start drying
up of crude oil inside the country. The Islamic Republic of Iran has also banned all steel exports, showing that damage to metallurgical industries in the prior armed conflict is obviously showing to be quite high, as they will not be allowing any of their steel to be exported any longer. And we've also been able to hear that the foreign minister of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Abbas Araghchi, has now arrived inside the Russian Federation and is currently meeting with the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, at this very moment. It is believed that they will most likely be discussing the ongoing war against the United States and how the Russian Federation may be able to support Iran in that ongoing conflict. Israel's made it incredibly clear that they're looking for the return to war, stating that the Iranians will pay a heavy price, as we've also seen that Israeli armed conflict inside of southern Lebanon has continued. Additionally, we've also seen that sanctioned Russian grain carriers are apparently arriving at Israeli ports, which the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, stated is clearly a violation of sanctions and a rather questionable action by the state of Israel. China is also looking to supply jet fuel to countries in Asia that appear to be running somewhat low, most likely in an attempt to be able to build some soft power and soft influence over these countries if they accept Chinese jet fuel. We've also been able to hear that the Russian Federation has openly threatened Romania today after Romania summoned the Russian ambassador to ask him about the drone that landed inside the city of Galati. The Russian Federation stated that Romania is an active and involved belligerent in the war, and such they should not be surprised over such developments. We've also heard that the IAEA's director has stated that the risk of nuclear war is now higher than ever, and we've also seen that meanwhile in Mali, rebel forces have now declared that they are sieging the capital of Bamako within the southwestern area of the country. We have quite a significant amount of news, and we're going to be making sure to cover each and every single bit of this in great detail throughout the entirety of our video, starting with our largest stories first, and then moving our way on down into the smaller stories throughout the video. Moving us on into our first and largest story of the day, we are immediately going to be going to the Russian port of Tuapse, as the port of Tuapse has been a point of fascination and focus in the Ukraine war for a great deal of days since it was originally attacked about 4 days ago. Since then, the Russian port of Tuapse has been in a roaring inferno, and video footage today has once again shown us this roaring inferno from a top-down perspective on one of the hillsides near to the area. From what we've seen, over 50% of the Russian oil storage tanks at this facility have been destroyed, with even more catching on fire and burning today, meaning that the number of destroyed fuel tanks is only rising day over day. We have also seen that the fires are beginning to spread into the residential areas near to the refinery, which we can see in this video right here. It does appear that at this moment it's becoming an unmitigated disaster. It already was a disaster. It is now much more an unmitigated disaster, as this video footage here also showed us what appeared to be a clip showing the smoke rising from Tuapse, which you can see right down there, and that smoke plume actually travels over 400 kilometers across the entirety of southern Russia, all the way to the city of Astrakhan, from what we could see on satellite photography that was shown later on in the day. We have also heard that the Russian forces are apparently trying their best at this moment to be able to quell the fire, or at least control the damage, but it doesn't appear that that's very successful at this point. As we can see right here in this clip, another storage tank did combust and catch on fire today in another major explosion. We see that fire burning right there, that plume of raging, roaring oil rising up over 1,000 feet, most likely, into the air. That plume of fire right there inside the smoke is most likely about the height of the Eiffel Tower, from what we can tell from this distance.
That is so much toxin going in the air, y'all. Like, it is insane.
Additionally, we also saw the fire from another angle, once again showing us the sheer scale of it. We can also see that the fire was, at that point, starting to spread into the surrounding area. We have also seen another clip here showing us the fire enveloping a larger area of the facility later on in the day as the oil had started to spread on the ground and began to ignite and burn everything else within the surrounding area. We also were able to get one last clip here showing the refinery fire over the course of this day, once again giving us an idea of the sheer scale and destruction that has been caused by the Tuapse refinery fire. We see them here looking out and into the distance as they watch that fire burn, and it clearly does appear that at this moment, the Russian Federation is dealing with what can only be described as the Chernobyl of the oil industry. In the midst of this, we have seen that many Russian citizens have started to call for the city of Tuapse to be evacuated, and to be entirely frank with everyone in the Western world, there's been a great question as to why in the world that has not been done at all yet. We have not seen that any evacuation has been declared of the city of Tuapse. The smoke billowing from this fire is extremely toxic, and considering that the surrounding civilians are inhaling this every day 24/7, it is quite odd that they're not being evacuated just from that risk alone. In places like the United States of America and Canada, oil fires of any type, including the East Palestine fire in Ohio several years ago, saw that the entirety of several miles surrounding the fire were evacuated. Yet the Russians are allowing civilians to quite literally stay within just mere feet of the fire's perimeter around the area of the Tuapse refinery, and are not declaring any evacuations at this point whatsoever. However, the Russians did finally budge today on that, at least a little bit, and they're now stating that they're going to be taking Russians whose houses are being enveloped in the fire, and they're going to be relocating them to a school just about 3 miles away on the northern side of the city. One hell of an evacuation, if I've ever heard of one. I've never heard, folks, of an evacuation taking you from the crisis area and then relocating you to a school within the crisis area. A big shout out to the Russians for really keeping public safety in mind whenever making their key decisions on the conflict, and also dealing with Ukrainian attacks and the amount of damage that they cause. Outside of this area, we've also seen that near to Krasnodar city, the Russian Federation now appears to be deploying an older and what appears to be very beat-up S-300 air defense unit, or S-400, into the area to be able to try and defend the airspace a little bit better. The Russians already had 2 of these at Novorossiysk, and they didn't really do much of anything to be able to help out with the collective defense of the port of Novorossiysk, which was within the literal area of the air defense systems, or the greater area at large, leading us to believe that this S-400 is more for show than any sort of effective defense that the Russian Federation might be able to attempt for Krasnodar, Novorossiysk, and Tuapse, which have become high-priority targets at this point of the war. Moving us on out of the Eastern European situation and the war in Ukraine for just a moment, we are going to be moving all over and into the area of the Middle East, as we did get to hear news earlier today that the United States of America had boarded a ship named the Blue Star 3. It appears that this vessel attempted to leave a Iranian or Pakistani port, and it appears that according to the information that U.S. Central Command issued, they had stated that it had left the Pakistani port of Gwadar because they suspected it to be bound for Iran. We were also able to see the information on the Blue Star 3 here and the footage of U.S. CENTCOM boarding and seizing the vessel earlier today. Rather loud, but we now see them making it to the vessel, a fairly small one, and now dropping the rappelling ropes for the Marines to rappel on board.
Bob told us that they were going to test the alien craft that night.
We now see them rappelling onto the ship. And now making their way towards the bridge. The United States blockade is still operating effectively at this moment, and we have seen that most every vessel that has attempted to challenge the blockade has appeared to have been turned around, except for one, but we're still trying to corroborate that information at this moment. It also appears that the USS Tripoli is heavily involved in these interdiction operations within the area, as we did get to see satellite photography showing that 2 days ago, the USS Tripoli was somewhere just off of the coast of Oman within the northern Arabian Sea, showing that it's well within the area to be able to support and assist in the ongoing blockade that is being conducted by the surface fleet of the United States Navy. In the midst of this, the President of the United States has announced that apparently the Iranian government and the Iranian economy is collapsing. In a statement today, the President of the United States stated the following: Iran has just informed us that they are in a state of collapse. They want us to open the Hormuz Strait as soon as possible as they try to figure out their leadership situation, which I believe they will be able to do. Thank you for your attention to this matter. In the midst of this statement, we did get to hear that reports were coming out that were forecasting that the Islamic Republic of Iran's oil storage capacity was soon going to be running out, and according to the information that came out today, at least from Bloomberg, Iran is running out of places to store its oil with only about 12 to 22 days of capacity left. Because the U.S. naval blockade has cut exports by roughly 70%, shipments through the Strait of Hormuz have nearly stopped, and no tankers are getting through. If this continues, Iran may be forced to cut production by another 1.5 million barrels per day by mid-May, on top of the large reductions already made. Even so, the financial impact won't be immediate since oil shipments take time to reach buyers and payments are delayed, giving Iran a few months of breathing room despite the growing supply crunch. And that was according to the source by Bloomberg. We don't see any indication at the moment that the Islamic Republic of Iran and its economy is absolutely collapsing, because much like Bloomberg is reporting on the situation with Iran's oil industries, which are the ones that would be the most heavily affected by exports, it takes an incredibly long time for an industry like that to be affected. It takes a long time for any industry to be affected to the point of total collapse. They don't collapse within the course of just 3 days. We've seen that incredibly well with the war in Ukraine, as the Ukrainian armed forces have slammed Russian oil refineries and oil infrastructure for well over 1.5 to 2 years at this point, and only about at this time right now is Russia getting into the serious throes of a near economic collapse. The Islamic Republic of Iran was already in a weakened state before the war began against them in late February, but we do not believe that at any state right now, the Islamic Republic of Iran's economy is in an absolute and unmitigated state of total collapse. Not only that, we would also believe that if that was the case, the last people that the Iranians would tell that to would be the United States of America, considering that they are currently still perceiving themselves, along with us, to be in an active war with each other, and that really wouldn't make their negotiating position that advantageous, considering that they just gave hand to the United States of America and the prerequisite knowledge that the Iranian government is already dealing with a severe economic crisis, which would greatly weaken its negotiating position and mean that the United States might just be able to wait out the blockade and see that Iran economically collapses, and with it, the naval blockade inside of the Hormuz. That's something that I would generally believe the Iranians wouldn't do, because anyone, including a strategic amateur, would know not to tell your enemy that you're in an absolute dire economic situation. Even the Russian government doesn't admit that, and while some people in the Russian Federation, like economic experts, will make the claims, the Russian government is continued to state, and states to this day, that their economy is perfectly fine and they're doing completely normal. Moving us on out of that statement, however, we've also been able to hear that apparently the United States of America is considering beginning military operations against the Iranians here soon once again. As according to what the president told one advisor, he stated that all of Iran's leaders understand is bombs, or all that they understand is bombs. Apparently he's consulting with people outside of the administration, with all of them advising the president to take some kind of military action to try and break the current blockade. To be entirely honest with y'all, that would actually be a fairly smart move at this point. It's become clear that the Iranians will not renegotiate an opening of the strait, and they are going to exert control over it indefinitely unless we challenge their control, and for that reason, it would be prudent to see that military action does continue. So if we are hearing news that the president is at least hearing some information from some advisors that military operations should resume against the Iranians, particularly to reopen the Hormuz, then that is actually pretty sound advice being given by these advisors. Additionally, we've also been able to hear that in the meantime, domestic gas prices are still rising in the United States, and across the United States, the mean average, or the average gas price, is around $4.18, as y'all can see right here. And we do understand that U.S. oil prices are now trading at over $100 per barrel, as we continue to see that the physical resource of oil is beginning to run short in terms of supply. Moving us on out of that information, we've also seen that within the Iranian capital, they have now announced a ban on steel exports. This is giving us a clear indication that those strikes that were seen on metallurgical plants in the prior conflict or the prior armed phase of the conflict were successful, and the Iranians are seeing that they are starting to run into critical shortages of steel, which is a significant resource, especially for wartime activities. Moving us on from that, the Islamic Republic of Iran has also been engaged in talks with the Russian Federation, as the foreign minister Abbas Araghchi was seen today inside of Moscow and was talking to the Russian President Vladimir Putin and the foreign minister Sergei Lavrov, which appears to be as horseface as usual. Someone needs to give that blood a salt block because he looks like he's been very parched recently for a good snack. Maybe some hay and an apple as well, but I feel like that'd be a little bit too much. Moving us on out of all that information and all of that news that's been going on between Iran and the Russian Federation, the state of Israel also appears to be eyeing a return to the conflict with the Islamic Republic of Iran, as the chairman of Israel's Foreign Affairs and Security Committee has stated today that the Iranian regime is about to pay a very heavy price, and he called on Israelis to wait patiently and remain alert, appearing to show that some elements of the Israeli government are still trying to seriously consider an armed conflict with the Islamic Republic of Iran and its resumption within the near future. We have also seen that in the meantime, the Israelis have been dealing with Hezbollah firing rockets into northern Israel, with a successful interception being seen here on video over the course of this earlier part of the day. We actually see the blip of the explosion right there, and we see them zooming in on it. And we also were able to confirm that the Israelis have been destroying Hezbollah tunnel networks within southern Lebanon today as well, which we saw here, or the massive explosion as a result of the tunnel complex being destroyed right here in this clip. A pretty large one, to say the least. In the midst of all this, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, has actually brought up a complaint against the Israelis and has stated the following. In all normal countries, purchasing stolen goods is an act that entails legal responsibility. This also applies to the grain stolen by Russia. Another ship with such grain has arrived in the Israeli port and is preparing to unload. This is not and cannot be pure business. The Israeli authorities cannot be unaware of which ships and with what cargo arrive in the country's ports. Russia systematically takes grain from temporarily occupied Ukrainian land and organizes the export of such grains by individuals associated with the occupiers. Such transactions violate the legislation of the State of Israel itself. Ukraine has taken all necessary steps through diplomatic channels to prevent such incidents. However, we see that another such ship has not been stopped. I have instructed the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine to inform all our state's partners about the situation. Based on information from our intelligence services, Ukraine is preparing a corresponding sanctions package, which will include both those who directly transport the grain and those individuals and legal entities who attempt to profit from such a criminal scheme. We will also coordinate with our European partners to ensure that the relevant individuals are included in European sanctions regimes. Ukraine counts on partnership relations and mutual respect with every state. We are generally working to enhance security, including in the Middle East region. We expect the Israeli authorities to respect Ukraine and not take steps that weaken bilateral relations. This is apparently showing that Israel is starting to turn a blind eye to Russian grain imports, which is also showing us that the state of Israel is considering the relations with the Russian Federation to actually be a little bit more important at this point, at least from what we could tell right now, than their situation or alliance with the state of Ukraine and the greater Western world at large. A fairly interesting one that would require some further observation and further patterns to be able to see what exactly the Israeli government's stance is on the Russian Federation at this point in time. Now moving us entirely out of the Middle East and largely keeping us on the situation of fuel shortages, the People's Republic of China appears to be trying to take some sort of a significant attempt at soft power expansion and growth within Asia, as Beijing has stated that they wish to supply mostly jet fuel to Asian countries that are now running dangerously low. Many countries in the world are beginning to run out of aviation-grade jet fuel, which is not kept in an incredibly long supply, meaning that there's usually only a few weeks of supply in most countries if there was, for some reason, a supply line disruption. It now appears that the Chinese are attempting to exert some sort of a growing attempt at soft power gain and influence within Asia by attempting to provide this jet fuel to these countries to be able to see that they might be indebted to the Chinese at some point in the future just due to the fact that China helped them when they were in a time of need. We've also been able to hear that the Russian Federation has threatened Romania over the course of this day as well, and has stated the following after the Russian ambassador to Romania threatened Romania after being summoned by the foreign ministry over the drone that fell on Galati. According to the Russian Foreign Ministry, or the Russian ambassador, he stated that Romania is a de facto party to the conflict and must be aware of the possible consequences of its actions. Now showing that the Russian Federation's official diplomatic stance is that they are at war with the entirety of NATO and the Western world, which is quite a concerning development to hear. We've also been able to hear that the IAEA director has stated that the risk of nuclear war has increased to a level not seen since the Cold War, showing that tensions are certainly rising, and most experts within most fields are beginning to feel the pressure. We've also been able to hear that at the same time, the Ukrainian armed forces also struck and destroyed Iskander storage sites near to the city of Simferopol, which is in the central area of the Crimean Peninsula, overnight. We can see these direct drone attacks landing their hits on the marks and destroying these sites that are storing the Iskander short-range ballistic missile. We can see that a significant amount of these strikes are being carried out with a great deal of efficacy and efficiency.
You don't know what an AI work management platform is? Yikes. Here's 3 new AI-powered changes to the Monday platform in 2026 and what they actually mean. We all know we need to use AI, but we're still figuring out how. Well, Monday.com figured it out. Number 1, Monday Sidekick. It's like your own business consultant, but not like the one you pay hourly and that gives you generic advice.
Take a look at them. We also were able to hear reports elsewhere inside of Ukraine that the Ukrainian armed forces' long-range drones are continuing to strike Russian logistics around the area of Donetsk, striking and destroying a fuel truck attempting to transport fuel for the Russian army near to the outskirts of Donetsk today. Moving us on and entirely out of the situation in Europe and also in the Middle East, we have a little bit of news that has come out of Mali, which is showing that the rebels have made significant gains, as the rebels have now declared a siege of the capital of Bamako over the course of this day. This is actually one of the rebel leaders that was seen here on this broadcast that was made, and it does appear that he was making the direct statement that they are going to be conducting a full siege of the capital and waiting for the government to relent and largely give up in the current conflict so far and transfer power back over to the rebel forces. We understand that at the moment the rebels appear to be on the upper hand throughout most of the country. They have forced the Russian Federation's Africa Corps out of its base in the far desert regions of Kidal, and we've also been able to see that rebel forces have been inflicting significant damage and losses on pro-government forces and also the Russian Africa Corps throughout the entirety of Mali. It is now expected that we'll most likely be seeing a government change inside of Mali, most likely within the next several weeks after the siege is concluded. It doesn't really appear that at this point resistance is incredibly strong against the rebel forces. But with that, that is all of the major news that we have for the day. I have to thank you all so much once again for watching. It's an entire honor and a pleasure to be able to make these short war videos each and every day that we have enough news to make them, and to also be able to run the live streams at night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. I hope y'all have enjoyed these.
So we went over what's going on for most of the day and about what's going on from last night to now. We will be staying up to date with the situation, especially with the Mali situation, because that can get a little unhinged. I mean, it's not going to get major, but it can get a little unhinged. But yeah, if y'all haven't dropped a like or subscribe, make sure y'all do both and hit that little bell button so y'all get notified when we come on.